So, welcome to the Cole Memo. I am Cole Preston. In case you're watching the podcast right now and don't know why the show is called the Cole Memo, pause your screen and you can read it or you can just Google it. It's not just because my name is Cole. Earlier this week, I hinted that something interesting might happen on Friday. True to form, Governor Pritzker, after a surprise appearance in Paris and nearly 3 weeks out of the public eye, reemerged alongside cannabis regulators, lawmakers, the CEO of a candy company, and others to announce his support for a bill that critics argue would effectively ban all hemp-derived legal THC products from being sold anywhere but the small and tightly controlled number of dispensaries in Illinois. On today's show, we'll watch Governor Pritzker's opening statement from the press conference along with other key moments. Joining me is my friend Phil, a fellow cannabis consumer. Phil, say hi to our listeners.
How's it going?
Thanks for sitting back down with me. And I'm also joined by Rachel and Chris Berry from the Illinois Hemp Growers Association. You can find them online at illinoishga.com. We'll have that link in the show notes. Rachel, Chris, please say hi. Welcome back.
Good to be here. Hey, everybody.
How's it going? Chris, how are you doing over there?
I'm doing good. Great to be back with you guys today. Happy to get into it. This is another morning session with the coffee cups. So cheers, everybody. Let's get into it.
Cheers. I'm going to pass it back to you, Rachel, here in just a moment for an announcement on your upcoming lobby day. But real quick, I just wanted to make it clear that this show is made possible by listeners like you. Support the show by giving it a positive rating on your streaming platform or by visiting colememo.com/support. If you're not watching this episode on Patreon, you're watching it later than our patrons. For just $3 a month, you can become a patron and get early access to new episodes. That's at colememo.com/PATRE. And lastly, I'll be taking a holiday break soon, so our feed may be a little bit quieter until I return. Rachel, tell us about the upcoming lobby day you have going up. When is it and where should we show up?
Thanks, Cole. If you're following us on social media or you get our emails, you're subscribed to our email, or if you're a member, you probably know by now that we've been planning a lobby day for the last couple of weeks. And originally it was planned for the 7th. But in response to what we're going to discuss today, this statement by Governor Pritzker and some intel that we had from some hemp allies in the Capitol, they told us that we need to get our butts down there sooner. So we have switched our lobby day to January 4th, which is a Saturday. We're going to host from 9 to 4, and we're going to have the rally in the rotunda. That's the first floor. That's near the statue of Illinois welcoming the world. If you've been to the Capitol, you know, pretty iconic space. We're going to have tables, chairs, podium set up for speakers to have reps come down 9 to 4. So we're going to do a prep call. If you can join us, please do. Like, this is some boots on the ground stuff as we're going to get into. We need everybody's voice there, just like we did last session. Please sign up. Please RSVP. We have a prep call coming up on the 30th. Please join us. And Cole has the website pulled up. It's illinoishga.com /
illinoishga.com/2025 lobby day. I'll have that link in the show notes. Sorry to cut you off, Rachel. Go ahead.
That's okay. Yeah. So this is the main page where you can learn all the details. And then at the bottom, you can get to that other page that you had, which was the actual registration. And we are looking for sponsors for Lobby Day. So if you can make it, or if you can't, and you feel like you want to contribute to making sure that our advocates on the ground that day have sandwiches in their bellies and maybe some gas stipends, stuff like that, please contribute. And you can find details for that on our page too.
Yeah, and I just got to say, for people that are wondering, January 4th is on a Saturday. I actually got really excited when you rescheduled that because it's hard even for myself to sometimes make it during the week. And so I just wanted to mention that, it is on a Saturday, folks. So if you can make it to Springfield, I'll see you there. If you can't, you'll be with me in spirit. Any other thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, just meet us there. If you want more details, reach out. Again, sign up for that prep call. If you have representatives that are a hemp ally and would come down and do some speaking at the podium that day, please do that. Oh yeah, I should say, be reaching out to your reps, folks. Like just like we did last time. I'm going to recirculate some of those posts from the spring session. Call your house members and make sure that they're still on board. They still know what's going on, and let them know that we're going to be there on the 4th. And we'd like to have a meeting with them, or have them come down to the first floor rotunda. So yeah, thanks for jogging my memory.
Yeah, no, thank you. Looking forward to being there. And, yeah, I'm just hoping that people come out and support meaningful reform in Illinois, because I believe that that's what you're all fighting for. So with that, why don't we watch the opening statement from Governor Pritzker's press conference on Friday, December 13th, 2024. You ready to have some fun? Let's do it.
Okay.
Here we go.
Obligatory person in lab coat.
Yeah.
Good afternoon, everyone. We are here today because children across the state of Illinois are getting sick and they're being hospitalized. And we can take action to prevent it. When we set out to legalize and regulate the cannabis industry here in Illinois, one of our most important priorities was the health and safety of consumers, especially children. Our landmark legislation included, strict regulations and guardrails that crack down on deceptive practices in packaging and advertising. Within the licensed and legalized cannabis industry, those efforts have proved effective. However, over the past 5 years, an unregulated and unsafe market has been developing, fueled by companies seeking to circumvent regulations and exploit loopholes. Commonly known as intoxicating hemp, this industry is selling hemp-derived products such as Delta-8, and they're using deceptive advertising tactics to market them directly to minors. These products have an intoxicating effect, often to dangerous levels. They're untested and unregulated and are widely available and accessible to young people. As you might expect, those operating in this legal gray area do not share a commitment to the well-being of our children. That is why today I'm calling for action. As this market has flourished, there have been far too many stories of people, especially children, ingesting intoxicating hemp products and getting sick. Nationwide, over 9,000 cases of Delta-8 poisoning have been reported, nearly half of which involve children. That's no accident. These products are being marketed explicitly to children. Too often, these products mimic the brand colors, names, and designs of popular snack foods, like those sold by our friends at Ferrara Candy. You can see for yourselves. Without careful examination, you can hardly tell the difference between these two. They can be sold anywhere, at gas stations, at corner stores, and they have no age requirement. That is a recipe for disaster. Even if they are consumed intentionally, these products can pose a significant risk to health and well-being. Because they are unregulated, there are no testing or dosage requirements. Using processes to concentrate THC extraction from hemp, many have been found to contain amounts of THC far beyond what is allowed for typical adult use cannabis. These products are often shipped from out of state and are subject to no oversight or testing for biological contaminants or pesticides.
Why don't we take a pit stop right there? Leader
I feel
Lefferts.
like he might as well have come out and been like, the hemp industry are groomers.
He didn't. He didn't write that speech. Somebody wrote that for him.
Yeah.
That's literally like the first, maybe second time he's ever seen those words on a page. He's just, his face is down almost the entire time. There's no way he wrote that. It must have been handed to him from CBAI or whoever else is, interested in pushing this stuff. But yeah, so I took a couple notes while he was talking. So first he says there's too many stories. Then he says there's 9,000 cases. It would be interesting to hear what the comparison is between the 9,000 cases and the cases of THC poisoning from dispensary products. Additionally, he doesn't give a timeline on the number of cases. So 9,000 cases from when to when. Also, he's talking nationwide. So he's including 49 other states in this. And so that statistic there is just like straight up cherry picked. Like he found the biggest number, literally 9,000 is what he picked. Like it's like a meme number, by the way. If you're interested, Google over 9,000. It's been a meme for like 20 years. And so additionally, he pulls up those two packages of Nerds. And obviously one is from Ferrara and it's $2. And the other one is half the size, does have a very similar label, but would most likely cost about $20. And so I don't know any kids that are going in and buying $20 single serving packages of candy. But
also that's illegal anyway. It's a counterfeit, like it's a copyright violation to be putting out that type of thing. So it's illegal already.
Yeah, and they're pretending this is a hemp problem rather than like an FTC problem essentially.
Yeah, and to your point,
and then he goes on to talk about try to insert dosage requirements in there too by saying that like hemp industry dosages are higher than THC or higher than the cannabis industry dosages, so therefore it's bad. But everybody knows, anybody who's been to the dispensary knows like the dosages are the milligram limits are like completely arbitrary and everyone has a different tolerance. So like a lot of the points that he's making here, these are talking points that we've heard before from people who were pushing these bills. And like, I don't think it's really coming from him. I think he's just reading what he's being told to read.
Yeah.
And it's bizarre. It's just bizarre for a governor that literally his like main platform was cannabis legalization, or like one of the main things he talked about, to now come out and be scaremongering about THC is just wild. I mean, it's insane.
So when he calls it landmark legislation, like it's a resounding success. However, it's been completely like enshrouded in controversy since the beginning, and there are thousands of people who have been miffed by this and who have been, essentially thrown to the wolves as far as like sinking unlimited amounts of capital into it and basically having nothing in return.
Yeah, and to one of Phil's points that he brought up, Mars, bring up another candy company. The Chicago Sun-Times reported that Mars Wrigley, a candy giant, sued weed sailors for trademark infringement. You can see some examples here. When you allow people to participate in a legal market, you can actually do things like this. When you push people into the shadows, you really don't have any recourse at all. I hope you get the point I'm trying to make. Right. So it's also interesting that Ferrara Candy was mentioned. We'll talk about them again here in just a moment. I actually paused it there because he was, let me see what he just said. He said something to the effect of these products are coming from out of state and are not tested for biological contaminants. I think I've got the moment pulled up. Let's play that real quick.
Allowed for typical adult use cannabis. These products are often shipped from out of state and are subject to no oversight or testing for biological contaminants or pesticides.
Okay, I wanted to stop there because one of the main questions that Leader Lightford got was, will this bill affect online sales? And she said no. So this bill would effectively focus exclusively on Illinois retailers. And if the worry is that these products are coming from out of state and all this stuff, well, this legislation doesn't address that at all.
It encourages it.
Yeah, I mean, it makes it to where it's the only route to acquire these federally legal products. That's actually why they're not blocking, in my opinion, the online sale is because they can't, because it's federally legal.
But producers would be stopped too, right? In the state, they couldn't keep making the stuff and exporting it to other states, right?
No, there's some unenforceable stuff in there. I remember we talked about this like 6 months ago or something. And they do try to put requirements on products that coming from out of state, but it's like, how are you going to enforce this? Like you literally are saying like every website has to do everything that we're asking. It's like there are people out there that will never acknowledge that this legislation exists. Like basically all it's going to do is the bad operators will continue sending stuff over. The good operators will just be like, we're not selling Illinois anymore.
Right. Right. And there was about 3 minutes left in his opening statement, so I want to get back to that at least. Again, I want to play other key moments. If you had any off the top of your head, I can pull them up as well. I'm thinking Leader Lightford, we may have to give her some airtime. But I wanted to share something I found really interesting. Sorona Labs, who makes water soluble cannabinoids, hemp, in other words. This seems to be like they provide ingredients. If you look at their team, L.J. Buffardi, who I believe is the son of L.J. Buffardi Sr., who started Ferrara Candy Company, is on the board of directors on this company. Now, he's no longer with Ferrara Candy Company. As you can see, he started in his family business and worked his way all the way up until the sale in 2017. But it is just interesting that, Ferrara Candy's involved in this, and the Ferrara Candy family is also involved in hemp, it seems.
Yeah, and he worked his way up. His last name didn't help him at all from going from cleaning the floors to board of directors.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, did you have any other thoughts on what we had watched so far? I know I cut in there to make that little point about online sales, or do we want to continue?
Well, I just made a note at some point. He said referring to the cannabis industry, that it's built on safety, fairness, and equity. And Lightford says this later on too. But as far as the safety thing and testing goes, I just have to bring up again, I know I've said this a million times, Illinois does not do product recalls for cannabis. They do not publicly release product recalls for cannabis. It's like hush hush with the producers and dispensaries. So anytime they come out and say stuff about safety and this being safe cannabis, we know that companies have sold moldy cannabis. The consumers were like, this stuff is straight up moldy. So
yeah. And on top of that, I mean, I've had people from some of the largest multi-state lab testing, the third-party labs, right? And they've said, while on one hand, Illinois says we have the most stringent testing criteria in the nation, that is, in many ways, it's been unmanageable, and it's actually caused massive non-compliance. So on top of the fact that there's no recalls, sounds like we're not really walking the walk. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah. Do we ever?
Right. So I think that's a really interesting point that you brought up, Phil, and I'm want to give you and others space if you had any other thoughts on that, because it's kind of the foundation of this entire press conference. It's the idea that testing of marijuana is some sort of gold standard. Meanwhile, you've got reports of THC inflation, and like you said, tainted products on the shelves. We'll have a link where we've done a podcast with some investigators from Chicago Sun-Times that found tainted marijuana products on the shelves in Illinois dispensaries. This all highlights the flaws in third-party cannabis testing. And, in response, industry operators and CANRA, our friends at CANRA, I'm saying that kind of tongue-in-cheek, a National Association of State Regulators, have identified oversight by reference laboratories as the best practice. They basically are arguing that cannabis testing lab markets have proven over and over again that they cannot govern themselves effectively. So I think it's interesting. On one hand, we're saying this is the gold standard, and on the other hand, we're saying it's kind of a lot of flaws with it. Any other thoughts on that before we go? No? All right, let's keep it going. Again, he was just talking about how, he's real concerned about products coming from out of state. This legislation does nothing to stop any products from coming out of state. Let's continue the press conference.
The Illinois cannabis industry was built on safety, fairness, and equity. Intoxicating hemp products are not consistent with those values, and action is needed immediately. So today I'm calling on the Illinois House of Representatives to pass HB 4293. This legislation will regulate intoxicating hemp products in a similar manner to how legal cannabis is regulated. This bill was negotiated over the course of a year. The Senate has already passed it, and it's time to make it the law of the land. The public deserves to have their children protected and to know that the products that they are ingesting are safe. By moving the industry into Illinois' existing regulatory umbrella for cannabis products, we can ensure that these products are tested, sold, and used safely. That means banning the use of deceptive packaging and prohibiting any marketing designed to appeal to children, raising the legal age to 21, and limiting product sales to licensed dispensaries.
So what I think about it's interesting about everything that he just said is those first few things are technically already in place. The last part is the part that's the crackdown, limiting the product sales to only licensed dispensaries. Like there are already things in place to keep licensees from marketing to children. There are age gates. Really what this is about is limiting the sale to licensed dispensaries. While we're paused, Chris, I can display, we found a stat from Fox 32 Chicago that he mentioned. Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, I got some comments on this, that what you just mentioned as well, but yeah,
go ahead on what I mentioned.
Okay, yeah, we'll circle back after that. So he's talking about delivering the industry. Like he raises safety concerns, but then he says the only way to solve this is to deliver the industry to our current framework. And 2 points with that is, one is no, and second is the framework only exists because it's a Schedule 1. So by taking something that's not Schedule 1 and putting in a Schedule 1 framework, we're creating like an insane amount of bureaucracy to do this. Like this is not just putting it into the existing framework. You're suggesting doubling the existing framework. You will double the amount of office jobs you have in the cannabis regulation office and other offices that regulate cannabis or administrate, or what do you call them? Agencies, other agencies in Illinois that regulate cannabis. You are going to see a massive increase in the amount of people and money going into this regulating something as a Schedule 1 when it's not. So like that is like a fundamental flaw of this bill. And because it does that, it also brings the Schedule 1 penalties with it. So when we created this framework, we treat everybody who touches this substance who's not allowed to as a felon. And so now we are recriminalizing most of what the hemp industry is right now. And that's where we diverge. We agree that there should be testing and labeling and age gating for products that could potentially have a psychotropic effect on you. But that's where we diverge. And that's why we can talk about the bill that we have. And
I was going to say maybe a good time to plug that.
Yeah, we have 5903, which is it addresses all of the issues that they talk about, except for delivering the industry to CRTA license holders rather than just being wide open to the public as it is now. And so going back to what they're using to justify this, we talk about 9,000 cases, right? That's what he said, 9,000 cases. If you scroll down to about the middle of the page here, you'll see it at the beginning of a paragraph. There have been just keep scrolling down. Yeah, there have been nearly 9,000 cases. So if you look at this number reported to National Poison Control Centers in the last 3 years, so on average 3,000 per year over 50 states, and 41% of those cases involve children below the age of 18, so less than half. So we're talking less than 1,500 cases a year involving kids over 50 states. So let's do the math. It's like 30 cases per state, right? Something like that. So we are shutting down an entire like economic sector and like taking people's livelihoods away.
Right.
Roughly 30 cases, like per state per year.
Yeah, and I'm just sitting here wondering, I want to give others the space if they want to jump in here, but I'm sitting here wondering, what are the numbers for other substances look like?
I could tell you caffeine's like way off the charts compared to this.
Well, and yeah, like,
general, yeah.
I mean, you would think alcohol would be like off the charts compared to that. Cause like, I mean, I feel like a lot of people, like if people know cannabis, they're not calling the hospital because they accidentally got stoned. So like,
Yeah. And I would even actually add, Phil, if they are bringing their children to the hospital, it's thanks to some of the normalization we have achieved. It's not often that you get this out of me, but we have achieved a level of normalization where I think parents aren't as hesitant to bring their children to the hospital if there's
right,
something like this going on. Whereas in the past they may not have. You know,
right, yeah.
so. In any case, yeah, thank you for bringing up that number, Chris. That's and breaking it down in the way that you did. That's super interesting. And I got to agree with Phil. Like that was kind of where I was going with. Like I feel like cases with alcohol have to be way higher.
Yeah,
Be interested
including
to look at
those
those
that
numbers.
affect people who are under 18, right? Like college kids constantly with the alcohol poisoning, etc.
I mean, yeah, a kid just died in Champaign this year. Drank and fell asleep in the cold weather. I guess it was almost a year ago now. So things like that happen, and it wasn't like the whole town stopped. And they should have actually. I think that's a tragedy. That should not be happening in this country. You know what I mean? But things happen. So, anyways, any other thoughts before we get back into the press conference? Cool. Just about a minute left in his opening statement, and then we can watch any other key points that we have in mind.
I want to thank some of the individuals and organizations that are here with me today who are helping us to crack down on this public health risk. CEO Marco Caperso.
By the way, you'd think they would make sure to take out those two words from this speech with how controversial this debate has been, and maybe we can get back to that. The witness slips are a really interesting number to contrast to look at, but you'd think the words crackdown would be the last two words you would want in something that you're trying to pitch as this unifying.
Right.
Yeah. Anyways.
So of Ferrara Candy. Dr.
Also, wait, pause.
Ramon.
The guy from the candy company is there to help with public health. Let's think about that.
Right. Yeah. And I know I bring it up every time we have this conversation. It's a quick point, and I don't ever do well at saying it, in my opinion, I feel like. But if protecting kids were truly the goal, perhaps we'd promote healthier alternatives or encourage children to avoid candy and unnecessary sugar altogether. I don't know where that went. I remember being told it's gonna rot your teeth out. I don't know. We don't. Seems like we don't have that.
Yeah, I think that the justification for the candy industry can be flipped and applied to hemp as well. I mean, candy is an unhealthy and unnecessary product, but it's our freedom to consume it. It's our freedom to produce it and consume it. And so if you view hemp as an unhealthy and unnecessary product, well, that's fine, but it's our freedom to produce it and consume it. So it's the same argument. I would say, most products with hemp are probably healthier than candy, but yeah, that's just my take on it.
Yeah. Well, and just to extend your point briefly, candy is marketed towards children. We're kind of all accepting that. You know what I mean? The thing we all acknowledge is unhealthy. We're yeah, I mean, of course it's marketed towards children.
I mean, alcohol too.
Yeah.
It's getting more and more prevalent, yeah, with the labels on the hard seltzers and just the fruity drinks in general. When we were all younger, it was the only thing that wasn't beer or liquor or wine was wine coolers. And there was hardly any alternative beverages. You had Smirnoff Ice and stuff like that. But now it's you have hundreds of options in that space, and they're not targeting the 35-year-old beer drinkers with that stuff. Yeah.
The same thing with flavored vapes too. Sorry.
No, I was saying, not to mention, I took our 10-year-old to see a Minions movie, and there was an alcohol ad at the Minions movie at the theater. It's
that's
nuts,
crazy.
Yeah, it's crazy that there are other substances that are more readily available, including like caffeine, that, our 10-year-old can go to the gas station and buy enough to like cause him to have maybe a heart condition for the rest of his life if he drank enough of it in one day. And there's no problem with that. No one bats an eye. And, kids literally die. Like, if you look up on the news, kids who are involved in sports, like, there's plenty of stories across the nation of kids just like dropping dead, like on the soccer field. And then it's the energy drinks that is what it ends up being. So, like, talk about life derailing. But yeah, stuff like this. Maybe they're thinking it's for millennials or something, but, Sunny
Yeah.
D's for kids,
Yeah, I'm displaying
Yeah.
on my screen Sunny D vodka seltzer. There are other things like this. Take a trip to your local. I'm pretty sure there's like a Sour Patch or some sort of other candy that you can. It's like
Mhm.
literally spiked Sour Patch or something like that. I might be using the wrong candy name, but the point is like these products are not like they're pretty prevalent.
Welch's does another one too. The grape juice people, the people who make the jelly for your peanut butter and jelly.
Really?
Yes, they have a Welch's grape juice like vodka drink now. That literally it looks like it's the exact same packaging and labeling that you see on the jelly in your fridge for peanut butter and jelly.
Yeah, it's crazy. I don't know. My thing with this whole subject, and I know that I'm not a parent, but this is I guess the truth is that cannabis infused products that resemble childhood favorites or even alcohol infused products, these have been a staple, in brands now that we've seen for years. Not only for alcohol, as we just pointed out, but in legal dispensaries, you can go and get THC laced gummies or products like M&Ms and Reese's peanut butter cups. And the real issue isn't the products themselves; it's about access and supervision. Like, if children are consuming these items, it's not because of colorful packaging alone. It's inadequate oversight. And I know it's hard to watch our kids all the time. I was a kid that used to try to do drugs before I should be doing drugs. Like, it's tough.
Yeah, where are they getting the $20 for a little package of nerds though? Like,
Right.
Kids don't have that kind of walking around money.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So anyways, I don't think he was just kind of saying some thank yous here, I believe. I'm going to give him 45 more seconds or so just because I wanted to make sure we got his complete opening statement. And then I'm curious if you have any other moments you want to talk about specifically or yeah, it's kind of open from here.
And Dr. Jamie Lim of Lurie Children's Hospital, and my partners in the Illinois General Assembly, including Senator Kimberly Lightford, who's a sponsor in the Senate. Welcome. And Representative Barbara Hernandez. Thanks to all of you for standing up for our children and protecting them. There's no time to waste on this subject. Just last week, there were news reports of Illinois children poisoned by intoxicating hemp products, ingesting a dangerous amount of THC. I've spoken with families of children whose lives were upended by the devastating impact that these products can have. Every day that these products are on our shelves, we risk the health of another child or another adult. Thank you to all of you for being here today. And with that, I'd like to hand the podium over to a great...
All right. Any thoughts on that? One line that stood out to me, I guess, just to kick it off, is all the families that have been upended, their lives have been upended from these events. It's just crazy.
I don't know. If I was him and someone handed me that speech and I gave it, I would be pissed because he just looks like an idiot.
He'll probably never watch it again. He phoned it in. He really had no understanding of the subject matter at all, other than, save the children. But he says dangerous amount of THC, which is just kind of like, who came up with that one? Where's the dangerous line? What the dangerous line is? If we know what the dangerous line is, like, can we please explain it? Can we please, like, that would be great for the whole industry, for everyone in the world. Like, somehow Illinois has figured out what the dangerous line is for THC, because nobody else has. And then again, every day we risk the health of our children. And I think when we get back, when we watch a little bit more, they see talk about, or when they start doing the Q&A at the end, I think that was probably the best part of the whole thing, because a lot of the people that were asking questions, they were asking really good questions. They were like, "What do you say about this? What do you say about that?" And he really didn't have any answers for it, but they did ask him whether or not it was a priority, and he didn't say it was a priority. So like every day we risk the health of our children, but it's not a priority. I'm not going to say that. So I'd love to get into that part at the end now that the opening's over. But yeah, where's what is the dangerous amount of THC? Can we please define that? Because like what are we doing here? Like we're just saying stuff. Like it's not convincing. It may sound bad, but like you said, Phil, you go back and rewatch it, it's like it's as hollow as can be.
Yeah,
Well,
it's
I'm late.
familiar. It sounds like very familiar. Just prohibition rhetoric. Like just can't say he's talking about marijuana or cannabis in general instead of hemp. It's like, what are you saying? It's really cringe.
Well, and later on, Lightford actually says this, like the hemp market undermines social equity license holders. Like that is what it's really about. Like his whole thing about safety and kids, like that's just all like that's like the scaremongering thing to like get people to support it.
Yeah, that's the main part of this bill. That's the difference between the 5903 and 4293. The bill that they want, it addresses public safety concerns, but also sends the industry to the Schedule 1 framework. And yeah, it there's no real reason to do that. And Lightford, like you said, Philip, maybe we should watch some of that too. Leader Lightford talks about how it's not equitable or whatever. Like they made a promise to social equity people in the cannabis industry that they would have a certain, advantage or just in general, just like be the beneficiaries of sort of like you said at the beginning, Cole, very limited.
Yeah. They basically promised they would shield them from natural market forces.
Exactly. Yeah. And so they made this promise. I mean, it's not, a promise is like politicians break promises, right? But they made this promise to the social equity applicants in the CRTA. But what about all of the Black-owned businesses that are currently like dedicated hemp shops, like who 95% of their business is coming off of the cannabinoids that start with T? This bill, it only allows them to sell the cannabinoids that start with C. And so what about all those businesses, especially in the city of Chicago, who like in this press conference, they do say like, no one's breaking down any doors. And in the question and answer portion that Pritzker says, well, it's most of the businesses that are selling this are gas stations, and they have other products they could sell.
Yeah.
They're fine. It's like that totally ignores all of the vertically integrated farms all around the state, and it totally ignores all of the minority owned or what you would call social equity like eligible applicants who have decided to abandon the whole messed up CRTA system and just go out on the limb and start their own hemp shop. And those people shut down by this, they won't be shut down. They will be crippled so bad on revenue that they'll have to shut down. They won't actually be shut down. And they use that consistently here by saying, no, we're not shutting anybody down. They're allowed to sell all the things we're allowing them to sell, which is 5% of their sales. Like look at anybody's books. So anyway, go ahead, Cole.
Oh, it's all good. I just the way I look at it is like hemp is just happened. The way I look at this is like, at what cost do we have to protect these licensees, right? So hemp happened, right? So I guess it seems like you said that they're going to have to cripple all these businesses. But again, just like setting hemp aside, it's just amazing to me that the traditional cannabis market, that was the original target. That's, it's like people that aren't within that license framework. And then, like I said, hemp happened. But I've been trying to ask that question, like at what cost are we going to prevent natural market forces from happening? Like it seems like the cost we're willing to pay, or at least they're pushing for, is using those exact same policies that were created in 1978, in addition to a $10,000 daily fine that they're going to be introducing in that House bill.
Well, and the license market isn't even delivering the revenue for those licensees that they promised it would. Like those OK dispensaries that just sold to Nature's Grace. I think it was Nature's Grace.
Yeah.
Like the guy that owns them was like, yeah, we were making like half or a third what we thought we were going to make. We couldn't compete because we're not vertically integrated. So it's not even a really great functioning market for these licensees anyway.
Yeah, to your point, by the end of 2023, when Illinois state mandated study concluded not a single dollar of documented sales had gone to black or brown owners. Instead, white male owners accounted for 78% of recreational dispensary sales and a staggering 91% of grower sales. So I've got Leader Lightford's speech pulled up. Anything before we get back into that? Let's watch it.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here with you, Governor, and all of us here that's in this fight for equity and inclusion and fairness. So I'd like to be included in this conversation about regulating Delta 8 products, ultimately keeping kids away from its dangerous effects. I am Senate Majority Leader Kimberly Lightford, and I've spent much of my time in office working to enhance the cannabis and hemp industries in a way that's fair, safe, and equitable. Most recently, I led the charge to pass House Bill 4293 in the Senate. We passed this bill back in May, and it's been sitting over in our partner's house in the House. So we're very happy
So
that
much venom in that word.
really
Say again.
It's been sitting in our partner's house over there. Like it's
Right.
so much venom in that, like the way she said that. Anyway, sorry.
No, it's okay. It's okay.
anticipate.
I also just want to note for our listeners that two of our lead cannabis regulators are there. Aaron Johnson, who can be seen here and has been nodding throughout at least these remarks. And also David Lakeman is there. Notably, both of those individuals signed as proponents for House Bill 4293. Let's continue. I'll just say it's interesting to me that regulators are being proponents or opponents of anything. I always thought as a regulator, you just regulated. But anyways.
Poured in his voice to this subject, and we're hoping that the House is listening. The passage of this legislation was a culmination of dozens of hours of meetings with the hemp industry, with the cannabis industry, and hemp leader.
So anyone who does meetings for a living, you know that you can have meetings. You can have dozens of hours of meetings and have nothing productive come out of it, right? And so they talk about dozens of hours of meetings with the hemp industry, but never once did they reach out to the Illinois Hemp Growers Association, which has been established for the entire time that hemp has been legal in the state. They may have met with some hemp people or people who claim to be hemp people, mostly in the city of Chicago, I'm guessing. And from there, they said, we've met with the industry. We're good. We did our due diligence here on this bill. But matter of fact is the language was not available to review until May 22nd. The bill passed through the Senate May 26th. So, yeah. And despite that, a ton of witness slips were signed in opposition to it. 96% of the witness slips signed on this bill were in opposition. This is a failed piece of legislation. And they're trying to push it through on the veto or on the lame duck session because everyone's going to have the holiday hangover. Nobody's going to be paying attention. They're actually going to try to pass it on a Saturday, it seems like. So, you talk about meeting with the hemp industry. It's like, you did not. This is not a stakeholder bill. This is, you may have had dozens of hours of meetings on the books, and you billed the taxpayer for that. But you didn't reach out to the people who this is actually going to affect and shut down. And it was proven when the legislation was introduced, the language was introduced via cut and replace, and within a few hours, it was an absolute shitstorm. And that's why it died. And in the press conference, it says, Pritzker, I think, says, I think they just ran out of time. It's like, no, let's look back at what actually happened. Not only did 96% of people say this is shit, but the co-sponsors from the House on the original bill started dropping off because it was poison. And it still is poison. They went through the amendment process on the bill several times. Amendment number 2, Senate Amendment number 2 is the one that got and replaced the bill. The original bill was for massage therapists. That bill got gut and replaced. Senate Amendment number 2 got almost 800 opposition slips. They did Senate Amendment number 3, number 4, number 5, and just to kill the opposition slips. Like, that's all they were doing. They weren't making substantive changes that were quelling the opposition. They were literally just rapid fire shooting out amendments so that the opposition slips went down and down and down, because the average person's not going to sign 4 opposition slips. They're going to sign 1. They're going to think their job is done, and the Senate's going to do what the Senate's going to do. So that whole case that just saying, oh well, it should have passed, the House should have passed it. There was, everyone was in agreement. It's just they just ran out of time. It's like, no, it's public record. You can go on Illinois.gov or ilga.gov and look at the history of the bill. You can see that it was amended on May 22nd. You can see that it passed on May 26th. You can see that there was over 773 opposing witnesses against this. And it's not because of the original version of the bill. It's literally the premise of the bill. The concept of this is 96% opposed. Nobody supports this. Nobody in the hemp industry supports this. And you can come out to the podium and say all you want to say about how you met with the hemp industry and that everything's fine. All the stakeholders agree we should pass this. That is an absolute damn lie.
Yeah, and you can also go to, I'll throw this link in the show notes. I was displaying it on my screen. I'm working on a new article. If you saw that preview there a little bit ago, and I wrote that, you can see the proponents and opponents of House Bill 4293. And as you said, 32 proponents, 773 opponents. It's worth mentioning again that that a lot of the proponents were regulators. So, you've got like Aaron Johnson, Kirsten Davis Franklin, David Lakeman, Sam McGee. You've got people from Chicago NORML, the Illinois Liquor Association. Phil, got any thoughts? Oh, people from Revolution.
I love to remind people that Chicago NORML was a proponent of that bill.
Yeah. Nature's Grace and Wellness. Umi Farms. I've had Akili Parnell on the show in the past a few times. Actually, he was on episode 2, I think, the hemp debate. He was a proponent of House Bill 4293. Yeah, interesting stuff. I do want to get back to, that press conference. But let's listen to the rest of Leader Lightford's comments here. I think she's just got about a minute left in her remarks.
We work diligently to put forth a bill that protects consumers, helps our cannabis industry flourish, keeps the promise to our social equity communities, and doesn't stifle reputable hemp business establishments. The current unregulated market undermines social equity license holders who have long worked to establish a legal, well-regulated business. Effective regulation is about safeguarding public health and fostering a sustainable, trustworthy market. It is vital we move forward towards regulation of hemp and Delta-8 products and do so in a way that is equitable and provides opportunities within the evolving industry. We support the hemp industry. This is not an effort to bash the hemp industry. We want the hemp industry to survive and thrive and continue evolving.
She literally called them drug dealers.
Yeah. She also said, you will not kill off our children this summer.
Oh my God. Like, truly.
Yeah, it's just the more they talk, just listening to this whole thing, it's like, they just like don't even understand their own legislation because they're saying like the literal opposite of what is true. And that will come about from their legislation. So like, it's just painful to listen to, honestly.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's continue here.
So I vow to continue to work with the industry experts and my colleagues to get a bill over to the governor's desk that places proper regulations on hemp processors and craft growers, so people know the actual contents of the products that they are consuming. And lastly, I would just add that this was a bipartisan effort in the Senate. There's no opposition, or I can't remember if there may have been maybe a single no vote. Maybe.
Yeah, she
So this is
definitely
something
remembers
that
who it
we highly
was.
urge passage of, and we hope that the Speaker in the House will entertain this measure. Thank you.
So
She probably wrote his name into a notebook 500,000 times. Like, did you ever see the movie MacGruber? Where like a car cuts him off and like the license plate, he writes the license plate number like 10 million times in a notebook. Yeah, no, we know. It was Senator Willie Preston. We went and visited him between that section and this section, and he's a proponent of our bill, and he wants to introduce it in the Senate, 5903, which is introduced in the House right now. So yeah, Senator Willie Preston, and like you were saying, I don't know if we were recording at the time, Cole, but I don't think that if they're trying to rush this through the Senate, and I don't think that it would still meet the same vote count that it did the first time they voted on it. I think you'd have more opposition. Preston's not going to change his vote, and many more, I think, would be on board with that once they realize what's happening here. And I think once they talk to the House, because their colleagues in the House seem to understand a lot better what was going on. The colleagues in the Senate are either too busy or just too apathetic to really care what the substance of the bill is, or to have the time, I guess, to delve into it. And when you look at it, it seems complicated, but the bill that they're pushing is doing three things. It creates it modifies the tax code to add the new taxes. It modifies the CRTA to steal the hemp market, and then it modifies the Industrial Hemp Act to greatly reduce the scope of it. So that's the three main components of the bill that they're doing, and none of them really make any sense. Like as far as taxes, increased licensing, and limitations on the market, and then a complete, almost a complete removal of the liberties that were granted through the original Industrial Hemp Act. None of those are really geared towards protecting children. It's like she said, I think you kind of noticed that too, Cole, is like they're talking about fostering good regulation is about fostering a responsible marketplace or something like that, right? And it's like, what are we talking about here? Are we talking about a state sanctioned like monopoly system? Because like that's kind of what it sounds like you're suggesting, like that open market is not appropriate for these products. And I think over the past 5 years, like consumers have definitely figured that out, that it is better. The way they push this bill, it failed the first time. I don't see why it's getting a push again. I mean, this is like their last chance, right? So if it doesn't go through in the lame duck, then they'll have to do it again, and it won't. It's the same thing that happened with the hemp rules recently. Like they work for a long time. They're backed up. They get close to the deadline. They still haven't done everything they need to do, and then the deadline passes and they have to do it again. Meanwhile, I mean, and all of this is fine, right? For the hemp industry, it's fine. If they fail, then everything stays the same and we're fine. But what I would like to point out is it's a massive waste of resources. So you have all these people on all these government salaries spending all this time talking about hemp and then not getting anything done, good or bad. They're spending a ton of time doing this and nothing is coming from it for years and years and years. So where is that? Why are we footing the bill for that?
Yeah, I wanted to just say quickly too that not only have I personally, but members of the IHGA spent the whole summer reaching out, to Leader Lightford. And, we spent years reaching out to the governor himself to try to get their attention about the issues. And then all summer, reaching out to representatives to help them understand, knowing that this issue was going to come up again. So for them to come up again and still say the same thing from last session that, oh, we did our homework, we worked with the industry, when I know for a fact, and many others know for a fact, that they're being downright ignored because they don't fit their narrative. And don't even get me started on the media, like the cherry picking and the half truths that are just being slung around. Just it's frustrating. But yeah, I'll just save the rest of my thoughts for later. But I just wanted to say that, efforts are being made to have these connections and conversations, and the actual hemp community is being ignored.
I'm gonna hold you to that, Rachel, because if you want to stop and you can, but I want to. I liked the role you were on. I want to hear the rest of those thoughts.
There'll be a better time as we
Fair
get further
enough.
in the conversation. There'll be a better place.
Understood. Yeah. Phil, anything before we move on? The questions or the press part is up next. So I've got a few, but I wanted to give you some space.
I don't know, just that just generally speaking, like there's a crisis of faith in government and institutions and media in this country. And I just feel like this is like a microcosm of why that's a thing. Because they're just up there lying. They're making stuff up. Like, just say the Cannabis Business Association wants this to pass to protect people that have licenses in the cannabis industry. That's why we're all gathered here. That's why we want this to pass, because we want a state monopoly, a state controlled monopoly on these products. I would have so much more respect for everyone up on that, dais if they just said that.
Exactly. While I might disagree, I would have so much more respect. Like I that's what I think has been so troubling about this entire topic is, and I said this on a podcast I did with some lawyers the other day, where I'm like, these are people that are supposed to be on our team. In other words, like, you're not supposed to say crazy shit about like THC, like fear monger. And I think this Halloween, I don't know, anecdotally, was like one of the first Halloweens in my lifetime where I've not heard sheriffs fear mongering about candy. But here we are in Illinois, right? You get what I'm saying? Like every year there's those stories from sheriffs warning about THC laced candy, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, this is like one of the first years, and maybe it's anecdotal, that I didn't read any of that, but I was certainly reading our new version of that propaganda, with stories like go ahead.
It's not the sheriffs, it's kind of a side anecdote to that, but I mentioned earlier, like I have a young kid, so like I social media, I see things with other parents. Like it's a total joke now that parents are giving each other THC cannabis candies and stuff when they're out trick-or-treating with their kids. So it's like definitely more normalized, to add to your story. It's just, it's not, I agree with you.
Again, it's just frustrating because I was talking to one of my family members the other day who doesn't tend to care as much about any of this drug policy in and of itself, but they did find it interesting that like it used to be that it was like pro cannabis versus anti cannabis, but now it's like, I don't mean to be cliche here because everybody's been saying the Civil War metaphor, but to have people that are supposed to agree making shit up and actually saying stuff that's like it's turning us back, like in terms of normalization, I guess is my point. Like if House Bill 4293 came to be, it's like these products, these hemp-derived legal THC products have become staples in a variety of retail spaces, like a grocery store that I've gone to since I was a kid. I don't know if it's just like I know it's like all over the state of Illinois, but I don't know like how big of a grocery store chain this is, but County Market carries hemp-derived drinks now. liquor stores like Benny's. I've gone to plenty of gas stations, bakeries, smoke shops, bars, restaurants, and beyond. I actually called like 5 bars in Peoria just at random the other day, and 3 of the 5 carried several THC drinks. And it's like people are I thought this was a good thing. And I think that like if this would have happened in any other time than now, we we would all accept this. But because there is an industry, right, with I guess a view that you have to not allow that type of thing to happen. It's just yeah, I'll keep going though if I
And meanwhile, it's been happening, you know, and the statistics show that the risk versus the economy, the economic opportunity that comes from this. Like the math is not mathing, you know?
yeah. And I guess just before we get into the questions, the way they make this sound, and I'm going to throw talk about silly media. I'm going to throw out some questions that I feel like are silly questions, but like you can see where they're based in. They make this sound like hemp growers will be selling their products in Illinois dispensaries. Like that's what they make it sound like. They're like, well, we're just going to let them sell it in the dispensaries.
Yeah, no.
So I guess my follow-up question to that is like, does this just codify the long-standing hemp variants, but also give law enforcement the crackdown, the authority to crack down? Like, I feel like, Chris said there's like 3 forks of this earlier. I feel like that's true, but I'm like putting it into 2 forks. Like, I feel like it's just codifying that long-standing hemp variants, and I can display that on screen for people that don't know what we're talking about. And it's just giving law enforcement the authority to go in, as they've been saying that's like basically been the only thing they don't have right now is law enforcement cracking down.
I wouldn't be surprised to see that variance go away if something like this should come to pass, that they would just take that.
Right. That's what I mean. Like this
Yeah,
basically
yeah.
codifies it.
Mm-hmm.
Do you get what I'm saying with that, Phil? Like, you remember that variance we're talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah. Like it just feels like it just codifies
The one that doesn't
that.
even require them to buy from Illinois hemp producers.
Right.
Yeah, that's always been my criticism of it, and it's always been 100% benefit towards CRTA license holders. So it was no reason for it to go away. Like they should just they could continue doing it. And I don't think that's the main point of this bill. I think it's just that they want to shut down the hemp side. Like if we have to distill it down to one sentence, that's what it does. It just shuts down. And that seems like the level of rhetoric that we need to use to get the point across here. Like most people don't have the time or the mindset to delve into what this actually does, and so that's why Rachel and I do what we do, because we can spend the time and we have the mindset to make sure that people understand and make sure that this happened. I think a good parallel is in Ohio, I think it was, or I can't remember where it was, but they tried to confuse the voters on like a referendum, saying that if you vote yes, it's actually voting no, and if you vote no, it's actually voting yes. And the way they framed the issue, it was like a local cannabis issue in Ohio. But the way they framed the issue, if you vote yes, you're actually banning something, and then if you vote no, you're actually preserving it. But the way it was presented, it was like massively confusing. I feel like that's sort of what's happening here, is like if you just create enough noise, then everyone gets confused and they're just like, what do we do? Do we vote yes? Okay, yeah, let me get back to what I was actually focused on.
Yeah.
I'll try to dig up that issue. It was like egregious, man. It was really bad. It was like the Republicans were responsible for it. They put out this like extremely confusing language, like vote yes if you don't not support this, like stuff like that. So it was just wild.
Yeah, definitely find that and drop that in the chat. And I guess my last thought before we start playing the little Q&A that they have is like I was talking to a Republican representative on the show recently, and he was kind of talking about how protectionist legislation in Illinois is just kind of an Illinois thing, like for certain industries. And it was just, that was an interesting perspective to get, like how, you know, different industries will use and find talking points like this to basically protect their market share, you know? It's an enlightening point that I never really thought of. I mean, of course, right? Of course it's bigger than cannabis, but anyways. Let's watch the Q&A with Governor Pritzker. Here he comes.
Me to take any questions from members of the media. Yes, Olivia. Hi.
So this is kind of hard to hear, so I did some captioning on it, but I'll just say, it sounds like she's saying, is this something that you're hoping would be passed in the lame duck or pushed back into the next session?
In lame duck, because if it goes into the next session, it would have to be repassed in the Senate and then in the House also.
And my follow-up question for Governor Pritzker would have been, if it's got, as much support as you're talking about it having, and everybody agrees and nobody disagrees, then why rush it through the Senate? Right? Why not? Why does that have to happen? I'm under the impression there are bigger things like the budget and everything that might need to be discussed. So why not take a pause on that? And since everybody agrees, let's revisit it in the new General Assembly.
They want to preserve the fast one they pulled last session. They don't think they can pull the fast one again. And yeah, it was all the cards or all the dominoes had to be lined up just right for that to go through in 4 days. And if you actually follow the process instead of using gut and replace, 96% opposed, my good man. So this is why you're trying to push it through. This is the goal, right? Let's continue to ignore the will of the citizens and push the special interests through and straight up lie about what the bill does to convince legislators to just vote yes and get it out of their hair.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then
So she asked, I think there was a different approach on this, a separate hemp license, like a different bill was filed on that. Why go? And I honestly couldn't hear what she said here. But did you, either of you, kind of get a sense of what her question was on that? I mean, it sounds like she's asking about different proposals. Why not hear those out? I guess it sounds like what her question was.
Yeah, I think that's what I come up with too.
Cool.
Yeah, I don't think I heard it.
Don't mind, I'd call on Senator Lightford,
Thanks.
who was involved in those negotiations. Yeah.
Thank you, Governor. We've spent a considerable amount of time focused on a lot of hemp areas and cannabis areas that still needed some refining, retweaking. Whenever you come up with something as massive as regulating cannabis, there will be trailer bills. There will be efforts that need to come as you go to fix the regulations. This was included in a full package. It wasn't something that needed to be left out. It's a part of improving our overall law for providing services. And we felt in the Senate that all of it should go together. We've passed it twice already. We may have even passed 3 bills over to the House that have not been addressed. So I think that if we pass the bill in its full passage, there's a lot of other areas that are involved also in the cannabis regulation that would also receive a big boost as well.
So sorry, what's your response to some of that?
So the press asks, what's your response then to some of the hemp industry that is saying that this is basically going to put them out of business?
So I don't know that to be factual. We held significant amount of meetings with the hemp industry, with the cannabis industry. We learned from both ends of the coins of the cannabis community. There's a lot of hemp personnel who said we'd be fine provided that. And we did all of the provided that in the legislation. We amended it to accommodate those requests. And so I believe that if they're regulated like the rest of the market, that they have the same ability to make a significant amount of money and do well in that space. to just circumvent the law is illegal and they're harming children. We can't leave out the fact that they're functioning right now in an illegal space. So they need to be regulated like all the rest of the industry and also provide those protective measures for 21 and under, for those under 21.
There was a lot.
If
in that
it's
statement.
illegal, why aren't they being arrested?
Yeah, what a just blatant lie. Like, what?
She gets the governor on that train too. He starts talking about illegal products. Yeah, if it's
Literally
already if it's already illegal, why do we need the bill?
Well, and cannabis is federally illegal. Hemp is not.
Right. Yeah, marijuana is federally illegal.
She says a couple of things. She's like, I don't know that to be a fact. And that's like plausible deniability. It's not a fact until it actually happens. But just anyone who reads this will see you're taking away 90 to 95% of the revenue of dedicated hemp businesses who sell hemp products that contain cannabis.
But hold on, Chris. She said you can just get involved in the industry and make a lot of money.
Yeah, if you have a lot of money and you get chosen for the license, sure. But you're going to end up in a massive pool, like a couple thousand licenses or whatever, and there's millions of people. Like right now, millions of people are eligible to have hemp licenses, and anyone, you don't even need a license to sell hemp products in your store, and that's the way it should be. She's also like, we held a significant amount of meetings with the hemp industry and the cannabis industry. It's like, okay, you definitely spent 90% of your time meeting with the cannabis industry. And then you also say you can make a significant amount of money still, even with this regulation. It's like, okay, economic impact study. Where's your, like, if this is really what you believe, then show us what you got to back it up, other than just talking out the side of your face. Like, there's what you're saying here is detached from reality, and we can tell because you're struggling to patch the leak that is happening right now with this. People are saying you're going to shut them down. Well, that's not necessarily true, which means it could be true, which means it is true.
Yeah. Well, this next question, Governor. A lot of folks from the hemp product industry are concerned that this is going to criminalize non-intoxicating. They say it's going to put 10,000 people out of work. Do you put any stock into those claims, and are you concerned about that?
I don't.
By the way, while I was asking that question, he was shaking his head no. Just kidding. That wasn't actually me asking that question. That was a different reporter.
Put any stock in those claims. I understand that there are a lot of stores that are selling these products that would not be able to sell these products. I get that part, but those are not stores. Typically, they're not stores that are dedicated to this product. There are a few, but mostly these are, as I said before, convenience stores, gas stations, and elsewhere. And they've got other products that they sell that they wouldn't go out of business not selling this one.
What?
So this one's an interesting one because he did bring up the idea of non-intoxicating. Now that I rewatched that, I don't know if he just didn't understand the question, but if he did, I mean, he seemed to confirm that, yes, you cannot sell like CBD lotion, which is actually something that was in the Chicago Tribune. And it was a story, I think, last time we went to Springfield that a lot of legislators brought up to myself. Like, I wasn't even aware of the story. I was just talking about how this would affect me as a consumer. And they're like, and what about the dog though? Right. You kept hearing that statement. Like, what about my dog that needs his CBD? And, yeah. So again, I don't know if he did understand that question and he answered it accurately. Cause again, I've heard concerns that this would affect even topicals and stuff like that, because it's not that anyone would actually use those. And again, I hate the phrase non-intoxicating or intoxicating in general. But the point is that to make any cannabis product, because again, this is all derived from the botanical plant cannabis, like there are going to be other cannabinoids. And from what I understand, this bill, House Bill 4293, is so stringent that it would even crack down on simple products that have been sold in Family Video. Family Video is not open anymore, so that was a callback for some of my people that lived in that era. But normal stores, right? I remember my friend's grandma literally used to sell CBD. It's not a joke. Like, so anyways.
Oh, yeah, I was just going to say too on that. Go ahead, Chris.
Oh, well, Pritzker says that it's not going to shut down non-intoxicating products, but all you got to do is go to page 3 of the bill. Look at page 3 of the bill. What's the milligram cap on hemp products? It's 2 milligrams per package. That means all full spectrum CBD products are now illegal. This is what it says on page 3.
I'll have to pull that up. Anyways, well, the next, Rachel, sorry, you were saying something, weren't you?
Yeah, I was just going to say in that last clip, like for him to say, it's just mostly shops that just won't be able to sell this anymore. And, they'll still be able to sell other things. They'll be fine. Like, way to just ignore farmers who have vertically integrated, who have added this federally legal crop into their rotation or into their specialty crop offerings for their customers. Like, there's quite a few of them, way to just throw them under the bus there, and just pretend like they don't exist.
Yeah, I thought that statement was pretty ridiculous. Just like, you just gotta figure it out. It's like, why why do I have to figure it out? Why can't you figure it out? It's like, again, I don't mean to get lost in. So this next question, Governor Pritzker's asked, they also raised the concern that this essentially amounts to a prohibition like the one that used to be in place for marijuana. That this is just going to drive it underground and that it's still going to be available, basically.
Well, it's not prohibition. It would just be regulated. That's the point, right? I mean, could have had a prohibition bill. And in fact, I think one of the bills a year or two ago was, in fact, to ban Delta 8 entirely. Right. This is something that would regulate it. And I think it's, as I think indicated by Senator Lightford, this is a compromise. This was, heard a lot of testimony, heard a lot of interests, and made changes in the way this bill is approached. That's why it took so long finally to get to where it was. And I think just ran out of time in the House. This is an opportunity to finally get it passed in January.
Would you consider this your top priority in lame duck?
Oh, I can only tell you we got a lot of priorities and things that we want to get to. I don't think I'd describe it as my, single top priority. I will say this is very important to me. Let me be clear. We are talking about children getting sick. We can prevent that. And we have, in just a few weeks, we can get that done. So that seems like, you can call it what you will. I would just say I'm passionate about getting this bill passed in the House.
He almost laughed at him when he asked.
So funny.
Priority. He almost laughed at him.
I just want to say, like, when he uses the words prohibition and regulation, like, regulation is a form of prohibition, right? Because either something is like totally free and there's no regulations, or it's totally prohibited, not allowed at all. And then regulation is like the spectrum between those two things, like what is allowed and what isn't allowed. So just saying, oh, it's regulation, not prohibition. No, it's a form of prohibition.
Yeah, and I think I'd have to go back and review the bill language a bit more extensively. But in the bill, they are talking about Delta 8 being a synthetic cannabinoid, and they prohibit synthetic cannabinoids from being in products. So I'm not sure if they're saying synthetic cannabinoids can only be sold by dispensaries here, or if they're just completely banning it altogether. So I'd have to look back at it again. But yes, they definitely are calling Delta 8 synthetic and then banning synthetics. So
which Delta 8 isn't synthetic.
Yeah, but it doesn't matter in the bill. They use the word synthetic as to mean something other than actual synthetic. And Rachel and I talk about this a lot. In bills, you have to be very specific with the words that you use, because there are legal definitions of those words, and if they don't meet the legal definition, then you can create a lot of confusion. And so, yeah, I'm gonna look through that right now and make sure, but I'm pretty sure, like Pritzker's saying, it's not prohibition. You can still get it, but it's like if you are saying Delta 8 is synthetic and that it's not, and that conversion from CBD to Delta 8 is not allowed, then how are the dispensaries selling Delta 8?
Right. Right. And I've got his next question pulled up, but I'm glad we brought this topic up. This is another one of my like soapbox topics with this subject, like hemp. Like, why are we even talking about Delta 8? Who I know one person that uses Delta 8. I met her in Springfield last time I was there. And I'm not trying to say that I don't care about Delta 8. I believe prohibition and anything that tries to, it's the iron law of prohibition. You can't prohibit these substances. You can only, sunshine is the best disinfectant, however you want to say it, right? I just like all this talk about Delta 8 and the alphabet soup. A lot of people like to bring that up. It's like who's buying that? I know this is like, again, I always have trouble but this is just like a soapbox point for me. Like for me, that part of it, again, I don't believe those drugs should be illegal, but it's like they act like that's like the core consumer base is like people going towards Delta 8 and stuff,
Well, I think it's their way of kind of making it seem like spice or something like that. It's like, Delta 8 is not normal weed. It's synthetic weed. You might go out in the street naked and eat someone's face.
It's just an umbrella term for everything we don't like.
Gotcha. Yeah. It's a damn shame too with Delta 8's, from what I understand, its history with Illinois. Roger Adams not only discovered the chemical structure of THC, he's from the University of Illinois, if I didn't already mention that, but he also I believe synthesized Delta 8 for the first time in like the 40s. So like, I'm not saying like Delta 8 is like milk and we need to put it in all of our breakfast cereal. I'm just saying like, also, I don't know anybody that's saying that. You get what I'm saying? Like,
yeah, it's a conversation from like 5 years ago.
Right.
The same thing with social equity. It's like, guys, let's get with like 2024.
Gosh, I actually feel like I'm going to sleep better tonight because every time I've ever brought up that point, like I feel like I haven't been able to voice it well. And that conversation we just had on that was very therapeutic. Anyways, okay, so if they're able to pass this legislation, how would you go about enforcing that legislation, given that the products, this question is really weird, by the way, if I understood it correctly. This was one that was actually a little bit easier to hear, still hard to hear though, so I've got the captions, but he says, given that the products, it's not like the regulated industry where you have people manufacturing and distributing them. It was a little bit hard to hear there. But he says they're showing up in places like gas stations. How do you actually go about enforcing? He says, would the police go in? How would you do it? Something to that effect. Folks, I'll have this video in the show notes. Please, if you can hear it better, I tried boosting the audio. I tried doing a lot of different things. If you can hear it better, please provide what you can hear because I'd be happy to, hear you out. Anyways, would the police go in? How would you do it?
I think that you have to think of this as, would you want a product on the shelves readily available to people that is making people sick? And if you don't, it's, what if you had, something that looked like Tylenol and it was making people sick and you could easily access it? Can you stop every package of it from ever showing up on the shelves of a store? No, I guess you couldn't, but it sure would make it difficult if for an existing legal convenience store, gas station, if they're selling an illegal product, I mean, they're going to get in trouble. And so that enforcement, I think, is an important component of it. But, nobody's breaking down any doors. But maybe Kimberly would like to add to, because we do have, the regulatory enforcement part of cannabis is a kind of a good, model for exactly what we would be doing. But go ahead.
And selfish plug, that regulatory model is the core focus of my mini documentary, which you can view now at colememo.com/minidoc. Anyways,
So, Governor, you just said it. That regulation doesn't mean destroy or doesn't mean to get rid of. Regulation is falling in line with our cannabis laws. So the same regulations that apply to cannabis would also apply to the hemp. Hemp has its own license and its own category. So we like for all of those who are illegally selling to stop and to line up with the law that would allow them to function as a thriving entity. I mean, hemp does a lot of products, lotions and soaps and deodorants and things. We're only talking about the Delta 8 products that causes harm to people who may think they're getting one product and it may be a little stronger or whatever the case is because it hasn't been regulated. So we just don't know, but we would love to regulate it and we would love to put it in its proper place for usage.
any thoughts on that? That's
I'm
the last
sure
question.
she would love to regulate it.
Actually, JB sneaks in for a quick last statement here. Let's listen to that, and we can close out this press conference. He brings his nerds up again.
I just want to add is, I mean, I just pull these out again because I think it's just worth reminding you, like, your children would not, at some age, 6, 8, 10, would not know the difference between these two products.
Other than the price tag.
Beginning of a reason and a good reason why this ought to be regulated. Yeah.
Other than one is 10 times the cost of the other one and much smaller.
Yeah, and like way to just be like, parents cannot take care of their children's in their own households at all. The state needs to step in and take these products away. So like parents should know what their kids are eating. Like or keep the hemp products or marijuana products, whatever, like just keep them out of reach of kids. Like same with alcohol, some with anything.
Show me a gas station or like a Walgreens that is selling counterfeit candy products. Like, where is your kid going that they're finding these? Like, not even a normal smoke shop, maybe, but like they'd have to be going to like a shady smoke shop.
Yeah, like a little hole in the wall convenience store.
Yeah.
May or may not have a business license to begin with. Yeah.
Yeah, like you're not ordering this online. It's not in the mobile down the street. Like,
Yeah,
it's just so weird.
yeah, there's like they're trying to say like kids could accidentally buy it. It's like how? If they're trying to buy nerds, they've got like $1, like when they get to the register, they're gonna be like, no, it's $20, kid, or whatever. Yeah, how are they accidentally like my point is people who are buying them, they're seeking them out. Like they know what they want. Like they want that. I don't know.
Yeah, it's a frustrating one because it's an oversight issue on two parts. Like I was saying earlier, like if your kids are consuming it, like honestly, with cannabis, my mom got me pretty locked down because she's like, Cole, don't consume cannabis. And guess what? I'm going to test you once every month. And I was like, fuck, you got me there. If I test negative or if I test positive, like I don't get my phone anymore. It was pretty effective. So if you have, what's that?
Did you study for the test?
I did. Unfortunately, I failed. Anyways, that was good. You set me up for that. But the oversight, on the other hand, like I said, it's two-pronged. It's the parents, and you've got, I think, pretty effective and cheap tools. I just saw at Dollar General the other day. They still sell marijuana tests. Pretty cheap, Dollar General. You've got an oversight on the other hand, which is the stores, right? What store is selling children this stuff, right? And like you said, if they're likely a real sketchy store, so it just seems like a very scarecrow, like just a weak argument, for lack of better words.
Yeah, like 5-year-old kids are wandering into dimly lit bodegas all over the state looking for hemp products.
Right. Children are under attack in Illinois. Well, any other thoughts on this press conference? I do want to close out with it's a three-minute report that's not on hemp. I know that we've been going for a while, but it's related, and it's from the head of the Cannabis Business Association of Illinois, and you'll be able to see how it relates. But I don't want to shift gears just yet. Any other thoughts on that press conference?
Yeah, just that we wrote a response. I don't know if you want to touch on that, Chris, and you can also find it. I'm going to post it on our website today in a new blog, but you can find it on all our socials right now. And if you're on our subscriber list, you should have gotten that in your inbox. But Chris, do you want to just say a quick couple words about it?
I think I touched on most of the content of this during our conversation, but it's great if you want to jump on and find this document here. It's a one pager that just explains and gives history on how this has played out a bit. And then also just redirects, 4293 is bad, but 5903 is good. It does all the things that seem to be, the major selling points of this legislation is protect the kids, make sure the products are clean, etc. So that we do that without handing the whole industry over. We do that without creating this protected marketplace and screwing a bunch of people over. We leave it wide open. That's the way it should be. And yeah, if you're interested in spreading our propaganda, grab this, share it with as many people as you can. This is what we call common sense. I don't know if it actually is, but at least as far as Springfield and Chicago is concerned, but we will continue to push for stuff like this regardless of what happens. If 4293 goes through in just a few short weeks here, like Pritzker was suggesting, we'll continue to fight to either change it or repeal it, or to pass another bill that modifies it, actually makes it work. But we don't think it has much of a chance, especially with us being there on January 4th and just in the middle of the rotunda, just going on and on for 8 hours throughout the entire day. Everyone who's going to be there is going to have something to say. The people we have a core group of people that show up to these things, and all of them have amazing stories. So we'll see you at the Capitol on January 4th. And if you're a lawmaker, you will have no excuse as to
Did I lose Chris? I think I lost Chris because Phil, you're still with me, right?
I think they're both frozen.
Oh no. I think the government just took out the Berry family.
I'm sorry that I dropped off there.
Oh, it's all good.
There he is.
We were worried that the government just took you out, with all the stories of the drones and stuff.
Well, it was a close one.
I mean, you started with a message to the representatives and they cut you out. So anyway, sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say no representative is going to have an excuse to believe Lightford's rhetoric that the hemp industry is happy with this and that it's a stakeholder bill. All they have to do is look at the middle of the look at the rotunda, and you'll see an entire group of people that are not happy with this, and it will hurt our livelihoods. So yeah, that's the only thing I wanted to add there was help us by sharing that with as many people as you can, and get to Springfield on January 4th. And if you need help getting there, let us know. Talk to us, because we can get you gas money or whatever you might need, and maybe we can set up some carpooling or some other type of transport. So yeah, thank you.
Yeah, awesome. Rachel, anything else on that? I wanted to give you space as well.
No, I think Chris summed it up well. If you were with us in the springtime, you know that we did make a big impact. Like, we had reps checking in on us and giving us thumbs up and words of encouragement when we were there in the spring. We have strong support in the House, and that's who they're trying to convince right now. So stay the course, stay positive, keep reaching out to your reps, and yeah, get your boots on and meet us there on the 4th.
Sweet. Sweet. Phil, did you have any other thoughts on this press conference? I know you thought it was pretty wild when you'd watched it the first time.
Yeah, just that. It was insane.
I'm just glad it was live streamed. That's what I like to
That's
say.
definitely
Yeah,
why it was
right.
like, don't trust your lying eyes. Don't believe everything you hear. Like that type of thing. Like that. I don't know who they're trying to convince. They're only trying to convince lawmakers that don't have the time to give a damn. Like they didn't even have time to watch the conference. They probably watched like a 90-second clip of them saying this needs to pass, and like that's all the time they have for this.
Right. Right. Yeah, I guess my parting thought with it is it's funny that, their real argument, because if you actually talk to anybody in the cannabis industry, it's that, price compression is mostly being caused by hemp right now. The prices are just getting too damn low, and it's because of you hemp farmers. But because that doesn't really resonate with people, because most people are just like, again, like price compression in most instances of our life is a good thing. Like I just saw the gas prices were pretty low the other day, and I'm like, hell yeah, let's go. I wasn't thinking like I am concerned about Circle K, and the ability
You're
to
gonna
make
get
money.
consumers. You're gonna get consumers on board with higher prices. Yeah, good luck.
Right, right. So they had to find a way to make it resonate, and it sounds like the children are under attack has been their strategy. It is interesting though how when you really peel it back, and like you said, there was a few times where it snuck through. Phil pointed it out, where she said this undermines our social equity industry or something to that effect. And it's like, again, I've had some of these people on my show. I wish them all the best. I don't wish them, I don't want anything bad for their business to happen. But at the same time, like, if you're just saying people can't also practice in that business because you might be able to make less money, it just doesn't resonate with me, you know? But anyways, let's watch this short report from ABC7 Chicago. It just dropped right before we got on. So I saw a little bit of this and I was like, we gotta watch this because it's short. And it's featuring Tiffany Chappell Ingram, the executive director of the Cannabis Business Association of Illinois, notably former cannabis regulator. Let's watch this. Former cannabis regulator in Illinois, I should mention. Let's watch this.
That the industry is.
Yeah, there are a lot of different sectors in the industry as well. People think about just dispensaries, but there's so many layers to it. Talk about the opportunities for people to get into the business.
So there are opportunities to get into the business. There is over 30,000 employees are employed in the state. There is different types of licenses. So there's dispensaries, there are infusers, and there are cultivators and craft grows, and also transport. So it's a burgeoning industry.
Bill, do you have any thoughts? It looks like you have some thoughts.
Just that she clearly was like, there's 30,000 people that work in the industry. That's not what she asked.
He also rolled her
Well,
eyes.
no, there's plenty of opportunity to get into the industry if you don't want to be a license holder. If you just want to be a worker bee, then yeah, of course. There's plenty of opportunity. And the way she said, like you could tell she's super nervous, which is fine. It's like, big TV show. But what she said was there are opportunities. Not there's a ton of opportunity and this is great. Everybody can get in on it. Like that's what we say when we talk about hemp. But no, it's like there are some opportunities. If you don't want to be the owner, then yeah.
I like how she closes out this point, if I recall correctly. Let's let her finish this point real quick.
There are also ancillary businesses, so folks that supply materials to those industries, so soil or packaging or labeling or marketing. So any services that you would need in any other industry, you actually do need that in the cannabis industry as well.
I like that she brought that up because oftentimes that's what's told to the people that are in the hemp industry now when they say like, what am I going to do with my business? And they're like, well, get into like ancillary. Like, why don't you just provide us with stuff? That's like if you wanted to start a restaurant and like, no, you can't cook your own food, but you could provide us with like plates and stuff so we could put on our food on it. It's like, you know what I mean? I don't know if that's a fair analogy.
No,
Okay.
it's perfect. Yeah, it's like well, you can't own the grow room, but you could start a company that cleans grow rooms after we're done making a big mess in there.
Right. Right. Well, this next point is really, really interesting. Again, you'll see why I'm wanting to play this on the show.
Really a fascinating industry. Myself and the ABC7I team, we have done stories on the cannabis industry, people getting into it, trying to get into the business. Talk about what some challenges that people face when getting into the business. What are some of those challenges?
So that's an excellent question, Samantha. So the cannabis industry is an extremely challenging business to be a part of. Like I call these entrepreneurs super entrepreneurs because you have to remember federally it's not normalized. So that what that means is that you don't have normalized banking, which means it's very challenging to get capital, which is the lifeblood of any business, right? So getting capital to start your business is extremely challenging for all these businesses, large and small. The other challenge is specifically in Illinois, compliance is a huge thing. So these businesses are extremely, they're regulated. You have to have sort of lots of, security and lots of protocols that you have to follow, which is very expensive. So it's very challenging to do that. And overall, like just the sheer amount of, what we're seeing as relates to, the taxation here. So, we are sandwiched in between what I like to call the M&M states, so Missouri and Michigan, which are lower tax states. And so what you see that's challenging specifically for the market in Illinois is that, people shop and they go to New Buffalo and they get their cannabis and they bring it here. So cannabis business, our taxes are probably close to like 40%. And so that really pushes folks to go to other states and get their products. So that's really challenging for the cannabis companies that are operating here.
So for people at home who might not be familiar.
So any thoughts on that?
I don't buy weed in Michigan because the taxes are lower. I buy it to not support companies that employ her.
Yeah, shout out to Michigan. Seriously. Great.
In other words, Phil, am I correct to understand that to mean that like you look for like small family owned businesses, for example, or just shop around just because there is that option there?
Yeah, there's just actual people that run small cannabis businesses in Michigan.
I think Box Brown put it pretty good. Is this your point? He said in a comic that he actually made after he went on one of my old podcasts, he said, we want to vote with our dollars, but we can't legally do it until everyone is on the ballot.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that's
that's like when people ask, they'll say, whoa, if I'm not supposed to support the Cannabis Business Association members, like who am I supposed to buy? Where am I supposed to buy weed in Illinois that's like not morally compromised? And the answer is nowhere. If it's a CRTA licensed business, don't buy weed from them.
Yeah.
I agree with 100%. We personally don't do that. And yeah, I guess we should get down to Missouri because I don't have a lot of experience down there, but if they're saying it's just as good as Michigan, let's go.
Yeah, we may have to take a trip over to Missouri, see what's going on. I mean, I do hear good things. We've had Lasley on the show in the past, and he shops in Missouri. So, yeah, I hear some good things about Missouri. Anyways, let's see. There's just a few more minutes in this report.
I
go
would
ahead.
love to see a follow-up question on that tax percentage thing too. The host doesn't challenge that 40%. Like, what the question I would have loved to see her ask is there any other industries that are taxed at 40%?
And what's interesting, to their point, they'll make this point themselves. It's not even just like, of course, the customers are taxed at 40%. So that was a good point, Chris. But they always like to make the point of like the marijuana tax or the green tax, as they call it. So yeah, it's interesting how taxes are so like applauded in this industry when it seems like they're clearly like steering it in the wrong direction. But,
yeah, well, you're talking about green tax. You mean like it's because the regulation is so strict and difficult that the taxes have to be this high. But it's kind of like the tollway, right? It's like, well, once the federal government comes through and says that everything's okay now, and we get access to banking and whatnot, we don't have to do all cash, then the taxes will come down. It's like, that's a bullshit. The taxes are going to stay exactly the same no matter what. Now it's on the books. That's it. There's no way they're going to lower the taxes ever.
Well, and just thinking about it, because I'm stoned, like when medically we tax it like nothing. It's like 2% or something like that. So they tax recreational weed because it's fun, because you're just having fun with it. So we got to tax the hell out of it. But it's like, you know, everyone needs to eat food. When you're at the grocery store, you pay a lower tax for groceries in Illinois. It's not like we tax fudgesicles at 40% because they're fun. Like the whole thing is just so silly.
You must be high if you're talking about fudgesicles.
Yeah, right.
In Chicago, isn't there a higher tax on like soda and stuff like that? It's like
I think they actually defeated that because it was like you know, seen as like anti, you know, as it is, it's anti-consumer, it's anti-poor people. It's
okay.
But that is a good point. Like, you know, the Ferrara candy guy comes up and says, this hemp is hurting my brand. And it's like, maybe your products should be getting some taxes.
excise taxes on candy. Come on.
It's hilarious. Well,
maybe we need to put in retailer licenses for candy too, so that they can help contribute to the Children's Dental Fund.
right. Hilarious. Yeah, I have not seen the rest of this report, so it'll be interesting. It's only a few more minutes. I'm sure there are some other good little golden nuggets in here.
If I want to get into the business, I can't just go and get a loan from the bank, boom, start my
Correct.
business. Yeah,
Correct.
let's talk about that.
Correct. No, that's absolutely right. You have to find venture capital or finances to do that, and it's very challenging. One thing the state has done here, which is really great about the state of Illinois, is that we have a grant program and we have a loan program that they provide to social equity. So the DCO, a state agency, provides that those loans to social equity license holders. So that is something that we do have here, but it's not enough to completely fund your business.
Let's talk about social equity. This is another topic that
I would agree with that point she just made. They're talking
I'd
about
love to challenge that though, and again, a follow-up question on that, and say, how successful has that been? What level of capital is provided? How many people were chosen? And how much money has been distributed through that? And she's not challenging her at all. I guess maybe they're friends or something. But if you say, I mean, the reporter says, me and my colleagues have been reporting on this for years, right? So why not? Why not talk about the problems? You must be aware of the problems. Why are we not talking about the problems? It seems like this is like a promotional thing that like, oh, it's good, it's functional, it's successful, you should put your life savings into this.
Yeah,
it really does have that tone. It's interesting.
very interesting.
Fund your business.
Let's talk about social equity. This is another topic the I-Team has covered. We talked about it off camera as well. We've talked to some people who say, yes, the state has done a great job in creating this social equity program to make sure that people who may be from areas where the war on drugs was heavily affected in their community, they would get greater opportunity or access, I should say.
That's right.
But some people say it's just not enough. The funds haven't rolled out quick enough. Folks just feel like they have not been able to have the opportunity, and that the state promised this program and that it was just celebrated, social equity was going to really help folks get into the business. There are some people who say, it's just not there yet.
So what I will say is that Illinois was revolutionary in the way that it crafted this program, right? The fact that it put social equity at its center. But I do agree. It's like we still have a long way to go. But fortunately for me in my business, I get to talk to Black business owners, women business owners, other business owners that are designated as social equity that are operating in a space more so than any other space in the country. So I think Illinois is still at the forefront of that. But, I do agree. We still have some ways to go.
And talk about the association that you're a part of and what you all do for other business owners or aspiring business owners.
Thank you for that question. So the cannabis, our association, CBAI, is essentially we are focused on what are the sort of policies, decisions that are happening at the federal, state, and local level that impact businesses in their bottom line, frankly. So any policies that regulatory agencies are looking at, I don't think most people know, but there are over 12 different agencies in the state that have to do with the regulation of cannabis. We are really laser focused on the decision makers and the policy to make sure that we have a thriving industry in Illinois.
And what is your goal for the next 5 years with the organization?
Our goal is that we want anyone who has to do with cannabis to be a part of our organization, and that we're able to help each other thrive, that we have programming, and that we have a connectivity because we're still a fairly young market. And so my hope is that we can be a resource for businesses to make the load a lot easier.
That sounded really nice.
It's not a young market. We've had it for 10 years. It's just stunted because of your organization.
Yeah, and it's in the billions. It's not a young market.
The fuck out of here with that. We're a young market. Jesus Christ.
It's insane. It's insane. There's a lot of good things in there. They want everybody to be involved. That all sounded really good. Like I said, that sounds like we've got a good next 5 years ahead of us.
Literally, she should have just answered, like, what do you hope for the next 5 years? That nothing changes because we control and own the entire market.
Well, and she did say, and I mean, look, it's not like, I don't think this is a crazy thing for an executive director of a business association to say. But she was like, we're looking at state, federal, and all other policies which affect our, bottom line.
Oh, the thing though about that is, like, yeah, for her members' bottom line.
Right.
But what is actually better for the state's bottom line? Because it's not listening to them.
What do you mean? What do you mean by that? Like
this market here could be like double the size it is. Yeah. Meaning they would be getting double the tax revenue.
Yeah, that's what Michigan does, right? It's like Michigan's volume is like triple what Illinois is. And even though their prices are lower, they're still, if they were taxed at the same rate as Illinois does, they would have higher revenue. Like, it's true. It's true. The scheme, the licensing scheme, the CRTA itself hurts itself because it's so restricted. If it was more open, you're absolutely right, Phil. Like double, triple the volume of sales. And instead, what they're doing is like, it's a common approach in the corporate world, right? Like, instead of innovating and doing new things and making new products and delighting your customers, you sue the shit out of the competition. That it's a reactive, like, tons of big businesses do this. The most recent case I can think of is like Nintendo is doing this with their Pokemon thing. So they're going after other video game makers to sue them for doing anything that's like vaguely Pokemon related. Instead of just making a really badass new Pokemon game, now they're suing people because they're making games that people want to play that are vaguely similar. And so this is the same approach. It's lawfare, they call it, right? Instead of warfare, it's lawfare. So they want to engage in lawfare instead of innovation, and instead of reaching out to the public. And I would love to see some polling on this. I don't know if there has been any recent, but just general approval polls. Do like how they do for president or whatever. Do you approve of the current Illinois cannabis industry? Yes or no? Just approval rating. What's the approval rating in the industry right now? I don't think it would be very good.
Yeah, be interesting. Definitely interesting. I will say that, yeah, whenever, and I could like try to pull up a post, but whenever I see him post about cannabis, like the responses are not usually favorable. And it's not even just him, by the way. I'm not trying to make this about him. I saw like a local news station post about the opening of the Cannabis Research Institute, and I looked at the comments on it, and it was like a bunch of people like, this is what Illinois needs to study the weed, like Jesus fucking Christ, like comments like that. And it's like, again, I think the lab thing sounds sort of cool. I'm all for, allowing higher education or I'm all for allowing study on cannabis, which is what's great, by the way, about hemp. In 2018, it allowed all colleges to start, studying cannabis, or maybe it was even 2014 that may have started with some colleges. Yeah. Versus, by the way, where it was before that, only one college, Ole Miss, I think. And there's always been, it's kind of a laughing stock of the weed quality they were producing there and like the studies they were producing there. Yeah.
Same thing with the cannabis they were showing during those clips where they were just talking in the interview we were watching. Like that stuff looked pretty scruffy, man. It didn't look like it was well taken care of.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely was some machine trimmed flower. It looked like it was literally coming out of the machine trimmer. Or maybe an industrial weighing machine. I don't know. I'm not in the industry, but yeah, I'm glad we watched that clip because that kind of it's interesting, like you said, interview too. Like there was a little bit of questioning there on the success, but it was very brief, and then they moved on. So it'd be interesting to see somebody really sit down and have a conversation about, the supposed what the successes are and maybe some ways that we can do better. I guess that's my frustration that's what I was trying to say. It doesn't seem like we're ever having an honest conversation. We're always like applauding it and just like everybody's clapping and it's like, what are we even clapping for? Am I crazy? So, all right. Well, any other thoughts before we close? No? Well, thank you for sitting down this morning and smoking weed with me and talking about all these issues. I appreciate it. And I'm sure I'll see all of you definitely some of you on this phone call on the 4th, right? January 4th.
The phone call will be the 30th. And
make sure you register an RSVP, right?
Yeah.
So that you can get that. Because yeah, folks, you want to know, like, there's really good instructions. Like the first time I went, it's just helpful to know like simple things like where to park, where we're going to rendezvous, like things like that. So make sure you RSVP. That link will be in the show notes, like I mentioned earlier. So cool. Well, on that note, why don't we shut this show down and go get us some lunch? Take care, everybody.
Great. Thank you,
Thanks,
Cole.
Cole. Thanks, Phil.